and welcome back to the second season of The Soul's Conquest. I'm super excited for you guys to jump on today's episode because we have another special creative from somewhere in this wide world who is about to share their story, their journey, and their soul's conquest. As you listen to this episode, remember that we are here to inspire, we are here to create, and we are here to conquer. Now let's get on with it, shall we? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soul's Conquest. Today, we have a very special guest, a best selling author, a person whose book I loved to pieces. Welcome to the show, Byrdy Lynn. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Amazing. So, I don't want to, take away your spotlight. So, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Let's go for it.
Of course. So I am Byrdy Lynn Kelley, and I am author of Through the Storm of Early Trauma. I am also CEO of Milan Property Management, REAME LLC, and Byrdylynn LLC.
Nice.
So yes.
Yes. So can you share your craft with me? Like, what do you create?
What do I create? I create books. I published a workbook. I have like swag. Just of like my favorite. I love going to the beach, so I have a beach bag and all of that. And then on the professional side, I manage properties and I develop real estate technology.
Wow, that's amazing. So because I loved your book a lot and I did want to talk about it a lot. So, let's jump right into it because I wanted to, just get a little bit more about what was going on in your head while you were working on this book, which made a lot of impact. And I wanted to start off with something simple. So you shared the penny story in your book. Could you kind of expand a bit more on that? Because it sounded really interesting.
Of course. So I have when I was growing up, there was a singer, gospel singer, but she wasn't gospel. She was, I don't know what they would say, but Christian artist, singer, Amy Grant. And she had a song called Angels Watching Over Me. And so just a snippet of that is, got angels watching over me, every move I make, angels watching over me.
Yeah.
So I love that song. It's my, it's a fave today. And so I remember asking God, how do I know when I have angels watching over me? And I happened to stumble upon a penny and I said, every time I see a penny, I'll pick it up. And that means I have 100 angels watching over me. And so that's what I've been doing it since I was a little girl.
That is beautiful. You said this in the book. So I wanted to ask you, can you share a story that is not in the book?
Of course. Thank you for asking. I'm glad you remember.
Yeah.
So a story that's not in the book. I'm going to say I remember as a little girl in Fort Worth, Texas, it was hot.
Yeah.
Okay. So my dad would kick us outside and we'd have to be outside and we would be sitting around like with nothing to do. They didn't park or anything and we couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I remember I used to sit on the little ledge of the mailbox and I used to make mud pies. I used to use the little cherry, like they look like little cherries in the trees, and I'd pick them and they have yellow stuff inside them, so I pretend they were eggs. and so little, mud pie dinners.
Yeah.
I also remember that I would sit there and that's when I began looking at the clouds.
Yeah.
So I would look at and see them pass by and imagine the different shapes and figures and what they looked like. And me and my sisters would play guessing games.
Yeah.
So that was a fun memory. It was hot. We were bored to tears, but when it came to making up a game to not be so bored,
right.
That's
No, that's beautiful. It captures a lot of the childlike innocence that we have, right? Like, I can't even remember the amount of times I've just been like lied down on the ground and just stared up at the sky. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that looks like a rabbit, right? Like, oh, so cute. Yeah. What is, like, what is the most important feeling from that story, according to you, if you would like to share that? Like, what was the most prominent feeling that you get whenever you think of that particular memory?
Sitting outside.
Yeah. Sitting outside with your sisters and just staring up at the sky, right?
Yeah. No, so I would just submerge with, in my thoughts.
Right.
And imagine my future and imagine what life is like.
Right.
What those clouds could be seen and what they're covering, and where. So there was a lot. My mind is very imaginative and very active.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing, especially in the time we are living right now. We need something to shift us out of that boredom and be like, let us imagine stuff, right? Like, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Now, you spoke about the light and the tunnel and how it is a metaphor in your life. Could you kind of expand a bit more on that?
When the light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as I go throughout life, and since I was a little girl, I look at life as if there was a light that's lighting my path, right? Mm-hmm. So I have this path, and it's dark on every end, right? On each side of, and I don't know what could come out and grab me and stop my path, but I just keep walking it. Yeah. And when I go through something horrible or, adversity that's just super dark, I imagine that light kind of just dissipates and it just starts to become dark. And what was on either side of me starts reaching out and starts trying to attack me and get at me. And so I run. Yeah. And it's hard to explain that in a book, but for me, if I could draw a picture of life would be the person and then the path the person is taking. Yeah. And you know that it's going to go like this. Yeah. When you have to keep going and then you backtrack and then you go like this. And,
yeah.
Yeah. But you have a light lighting your way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. So there was a part in the book where you said that validating your child is an important part of parenting. Do you think it would correlate to validating your soul as
well? That's a really good question. Yeah. So when I'm going to answer that question with my son in mind, when my son comes to me and there's something wrong and, I validate his feelings.
Right.
But I don't necessarily validate his soul until he accepts or receives whatever my validation. So that can be blocked a lot of times.
Yeah.
I'll explain. If you confided in me something and you said, "Hey, Byrdy, the sky is blue."
Yeah.
And I said, I said, you know what? I think it is. Yeah. And it's blue is very nice. But you just stopped at, "Hey, Byrdy, the sky is blue." And when I responded, you kind of just like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I've closed off my heart, right? I've closed off if anything that, you've closed, going back to the example, you've closed up your heart to me. Yeah. And so you haven't keep anything. But if I said, I think it is, I love that color.
Yeah.
The sky is. And you said, yeah, it is. Now you've opened your heart and you've received what I've said. And so I've validated what you've said and made you feel good in terms which could validate your soul. Right. So I think it really depends on if you're closed off and your heart's closed, or if you're open.
Right. So do you think, and I might be kind of, but do you think it is something that you can do to your own self as well, right? Like validating your own self. Do you think that is important? And if it is, how do you go about it? If you do go about it, yes.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people probably don't like to admit it, but I admit, like, the Eminem has a song called Voices in My Head, or was that Rihanna? It's Eminem or Rihanna, but anyways, they, the song, I remember that song because I do have, there are your thoughts, like, it's like, voice, it's you, right? And you're talking to yourself. And, while I'm talking to you, I could have thoughts of, should I say this, or where should I go with this? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's that voice that when that voice speaks and your mind interprets and listens, that you can either receive what it's saying or you can reject it.
Right.
So it is that war between mind and spirit. Yeah. But you have, there's not one person, I don't believe, that walks this earth that doesn't have those thoughts inside their head where they're thinking. If you ever heard anybody say, and you're like, what are you doing? Why you have that looking face? I'm thinking. Yeah. When they're thinking, you hear your own voice inside your head.
Right.
And whether that voice is going to be, is going to be powerful enough to lead you to choose a decision or not. So yeah, that's a really great question.
Thank you so much, and that was an amazing answer as well.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, you spoke about video games in your book, right? Like the way you felt frustrated when you lost a level because you were so in tune with the character, but then you picked up the controller and went back to the game and played it till you won it. So how did that translate into your reality?
Into my healing?
No, into your reality.
Oh, my reality?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say, for instance, something bad happened. And so I would, to block it out of my mind so that I did not cry or be angry. And, those feelings of just anger and just wanting to shred something to pieces, right? Instead of doing that, I would go to the game and I would take my vengeance out on the game. I take my anger game. And I would pick up the controller and I would make sure that Mario saved that queen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Found, and won those different worlds that he was in. Yeah. So that's how I did it. And before I knew it, because I got so caught up in making sure I got through levels of, the video game, I was immersed now in that. I have distracted, which in turn allowed my mind to compartmentalize what just happened. Yeah. And so it took feelings quickly from me. And it, excuse me, my phone is falling. And I was able to then focus on the game.
Yeah.
So that's what would happen. And I know people are like, well, what do you mean by outlet? That's what I mean by outlet. It was a distraction so that I could get through that day, so that I could feel normal. And I would just be able to go on.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Now, before I jump into the deep questions, I wanted you to, if you could recite the Who Am I poem that you wrote about in the book. That was super powerful. And I would love to have it as a part of this podcast.
Yeah. So I will do a little snippet.
Go for it. Yes.
All right. Girl, look at me. I wasn't even 1 month old before I was calling for a revolution. Truth is, I I was a revolution. I'm 14, just now beginning to become a woman of my time, a product of my own generation. I know who I am. I was conceived in the struggle when Black power and the women's liberation movement made it in the hotbed of social rest. When I was born in the dawn of the new decade, I cried, Black is beautiful, sisterhood is powerful. I had emerged full grown, the real Aphrodite, and had the skin and backbone to prove it.
That was beautiful. Oof. Seriously, that was so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I still have goosebumps because I actually downloaded your book as a audio book, right? Like I told you that, right? So when I heard that poem, I was like, I had goosebumps, and I was just like, oh my God, that is the most powerful thing ever. So yeah, I would definitely, to all of you guys who are listening to this podcast now or whenever, genuinely buy the book Through the Storm of Early Trauma. Am I saying that right? Because I miss up words. Yeah. It's a beautiful book, and you have to read it at least once in your life. Now, why did you write this book?
Well, I wrote this book for me. I wrote it for me just to get my thoughts out on paper. It was a healing process, and I went through that process with my counselor.
Yeah.
And so I wrote it, and every time I had an interview with the editor, I put out my thoughts. And until one day I just churned out like 8 chapters on my own, right? Because it was just like, like it's like it's just a purging of the soul, to get that out. And it was a very cathartic movement in my life for me. And I just remember being able to breathe.
Yeah.
To feel. I had a smile that didn't have pain.
Yeah.
I was able to talk to my parents and feel free and not feel constricted or the blood rising.
Yeah.
I'm like, frustration. And I thought, it was right around the time that in April when COVID started hitting and we started going under restrictions here in America. And I just remember thinking at that time, you know what, I need to share this sense of freedom, this new sense of freedom that I found. Mm-hmm. I had no idea, and I would have written a book a long time ago if I knew I was going to.
Yeah.
And healing. And so I just said, it's all in, the secret lies within sharing. Mm-hmm. See, because you share your story, when you share your deepest, most innermost part of you, of your soul, mm-hmm. what it's hiding, the secrets that are locked there in that closet, in that web, mm-hmm. that you didn't want to unlock. You thrown away the key, or at least you thought you did.
Yeah.
What you do is unlock it. You have to share it. You have to share it with a trusted resource. You can go share it with a professional counselor. You can go share it with your priest. You can go share whoever it is.
Yeah.
You can share it. Write it down on paper. Writing is powerful. Yes. Words are powerful. Saying it out loud. When you actually allow your innermost thoughts to be said of what's happened to you, of any adversity you've gone through, any pain that you are now expressing, that's the movement right there. That's the healing. That's the courage. And once you share it, there's a sense of freedom. Mm-hmm. So I encourage everybody to share their pain, share their adversity, share what's happened to them, because the more you keep it locked inside, the more it controls you, and you're not going to heal from it. And so that's what caused me to share, wanting everyone to have that sense of hope. Mm-hmm. They're not alone, and that freedom. And then when COVID-19 hit, even more so, I knew that people were going to be going through a lot, so here, the storm is here. The storm is passing. The storm's not here to stay.
Yeah.
The pandemic is not here to stay. So you fight with all that you have because you're resilient. And so that's why I released that.
That was beautiful. And that is something that I genuinely needed to hear today, right? Because um, I'm actually writing a book that is called Living My Truths right now. And it's a very scary thing to write, to be completely honest, because it's like me pouring my entire heart out there. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. And then there's like this other part of me is like, that is exactly why you have to do it, right? Like, that is exactly the reason why you have to write this stuff out, because it will help you. And I have known from a long time that writing is super powerful. Like you said, like words are powerful. So it is a scary thing. But thank you. I actually needed to hear that today. And I hope that people listening in, whenever they do, kind of resonate with what you just said. Now, why did you work towards, creating this freedom through your book while writing the book?
How did I walk towards it?
No. Why did you work towards this goal? Like, why was creating this freedom so important for you?
Because it's greater. It's greater than me. If the book would not be out,
Yeah.
if way,
Right.
I had to think about it. It was something for me. It was a God thing. It was something that was things just aligned themselves in my life. Like I wasn't looking for an editor. I was being told, you need to write your book. You need to write your book. Why do you keep wanting to put my business out on the street? Like, I don't understand. Yeah. Here's the editor. Go write it. I'm like, what? It's because it was my story, but I didn't get at the time initially when I was running from it. I ran for it a year and a half. Mm-hmm. When I was running from it, I did not get that. I kept thinking about the flesh. So I kept thinking about the things that me basically. Well, people are going to judge me. People are going to know my secrets.
Yeah.
People are going to, people are going to think this and think that. And I have a career and it'll ruin my whole career and I won't be all these thoughts, right?
Right.
That are fearful thoughts and that held me captive. And finally, when I remember the editor, Tracy, who's on there, she says, listen, we can just start and you can write everything out. And at the end, all you have to do is just, print it. You can print one copy and you can just keep it in your family for years. Maybe your son will read it one day. You can lock it up and never have to. She's like, or you can choose to release it and share it with others. She said, your story is so powerful. And so I think at the end, like I was saying earlier, I got over myself and knew that, it's greater than me. Yeah. And that putting my business out there as private is going to help somebody, because if they didn't know that someone else went through this, then they would never know unless they read. And that's why I did it. I wanted to put it out so that not only do you know my story, like this is what happened to me, but now I'm going to also encourage you to say, well, when this happened to me, here are some outlets I used, to get through it here, and I strongly encourage everybody to tell someone if something's happening, bad happening to you, but also to seek counseling for it. I had to be my own expert in growing up just because the environment I was in. But if you have a chance to, reach out for help, then do so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's greater than me.
That's amazing. What were the fears that you faced while writing the books, and what helped you overcome it?
Those are and I'm sorry, I kind of jumped into that question, but yeah, those were the fears, just that people wouldn't understand my story. They wouldn't They would judge me.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be, accepted anymore in my industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are all the fears, very real.
Yeah.
But I think once I got to the point to where, you know what, it doesn't matter what they think; they're irrelevant. And if you go to my social media page, my Instagram page at Byrdy Lynn Kelley, excuse me, you'll see that I have some posts on there about not living in other people's insecurities.
Yeah.
If you live in other people's insecurities, which means that they're not comfortable with sharing their business. So, how dare you share yours?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you feel judged and then you're like, oh, I did something wrong.
Right.
No. you can continue to do what you do.
Yeah.
And be you because you're not comfortable. But guess what? I'm going to be me and I'm going to share my personal story because guess what? Not everybody's like you, person with insecurity. So don't ever live in anybody's insecurities because it's going to be like that person that says, you know what? You need to do this. And then they're going to put a paint stroke of red because you're going to run and you're going to try to do it so that you could do that, and then someone else is going to paint another color on you and then another color. And you just have all these colors. Well, where are you at?
Yeah.
You got lost in translation. So break out of that and be you and don't let anybody control your life. I used to do that a lot. I used to allow people to do that and no more.
Yeah. How did you overcome that? What made you overcome that?
You know what? It just came to a sense of, you know what? I'm a grown woman and I don't care.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's kind of like I have to tell my son, and I shared this with him early on in middle school. And I was just saying, I'm not going to tell his story, but, he did deal with some mean kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just say, hey, babe, I said, you don't know what they're going through. You don't know why they're being mean.
Mm-hmm.
So you just smile or you keep walking or you just ignore it. Because when you get to college, none of that's going to matter.
Right. Yeah.
They made it to college, right?
Yeah.
When you graduate from college, none of it's going to matter. And when you get your first job and you get your family and you have your kids, where are they at? The ones that were teasing you, right? So you have to. People are going to be people. They're just people can be mean, right? People can be loving. People have emotions. We deal with the 5 senses, and then we have our emotions. And everybody loves differently. Everybody has a different love language, and everybody, is going to choose to use their emotions in negative or positive ways. So why are you frustrated? And why are you listening to something that you'll never be able to control?
Right.
So you have to just, if someone doesn't like you and you're like, hey, I'm a likable person. Like, why don't they like you? Guess what? It's their loss. You keep moving and you keep smiling because that person wants what you have at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And their head about their insecurity of why can't I be like her? Why can't I be fun loving? So guess what they're going to do? They're going to try to take your joy away because they just know it's fake, or they're just testing it because they have an insecurity that they're dealing with. And that's how I overcame. I just started really paying attention to people, their words and their actions. And for me, I pay more attention to their actions because words are powerful.
Yeah.
But they mean nothing without action.
Right. Yeah, I know that. I had like this zing go into my mind. It's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Now, back to your personal questions. I wanted to ask you, how did you start? Like, where did your journey of writing this book start? Now, you already shared bits and pieces of this over the past few answers, but what was the one thing that made you be like, I have to write this book, right? Like, maybe I should write a book. The journey from maybe I should write a book to I have to write this book to I have written this book and it's out there in the world. Could you share that journey a bit?
Okay, so my journey isn't normal. So like I was saying earlier, it was a God thing. So what happened was I went to an event. I lived in Texas at the time, and I flew to Virginia. There's an event called Feed the 5,000 at my church, Alfred Street Baptist Church. And so I would go out there and I would participate, and we'd feed we'd pass out food to families and children who needed, just some help. And it was great. They got gift cards and all these things, and the kids were happy, right?
Yeah.
One of the leaders of that ministry, he said he found out that I had flew in from Texas and that I had done so pretty much for the last few years. And he's like, what? He said, so what's your story? And I said, well, what do you mean? I said, do I have to have a story just to volunteer? And he was like, no. He was like, anybody who would fly and be dedicated to come out here, like you have, and give back. He was like, you've got to have a story. And so I said, I told him a fast food version of my story that you read in the book. Mm-hmm. And I remember after I was finished talking, I saw that he was crying. And I couldn't believe it. And I was like, why are you crying? Mm-hmm. And he was like, a powerful story. You need to write a book. And I said, no, I'm not putting my business out there.
Yeah.
So after that, he just kept saying, the first of the next year, hey, did you get your book started yet? I'm like, this guy is like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
And then he just kept coming back. Hey, did you write? Just every few months. And I remember in April of 2019, I had a executive who was on the phone with me, and she stopped and she says, do you believe in God? And I said, yes. And she says, good, because she said, I'm, receiving, just a word to let you know that you're running from something. And it gives me chill bumps. So today, because I'm on the phone, like, what is this?
Yeah.
She doesn't know me. Like, we've only seen each other like twice, and they were conversations. There was nothing. Mm-hmm. I remember meeting her like at a conference in the bathroom. We just happened to be passing in by each other, and I said, "Oh, I like your dress." That was it.
Yeah.
And that was one of the conversations. So I was just like, okay, so she was just like, you're running from something, and you're hurting, and you need to face your fears. You need to face it and let it go. And I didn't know what she was talking about, but I just started bawling because, I've been grappling with just, the same thing that you've read in the book, just things like that. And about 2 months later, I thought the solution was to pack up all my things. I applied for a promotion, applied for a job with my same company, got the promotion. I was making more money. I was going to be in Florida. And so I was ready to go. And so I packed up my car. I got out of my lease. Like it was at the end anyways. And I was ready to go. I was ready to drive out to Florida, and I went to church. I went and helped a lady move that Saturday, and that Sunday I went to church. And I remember just the pastor said, when I went to say, oh, good sermon. And, I was like, I found a church in Florida, and I can't wait, to get there. And I got a promotion, blah, blah, blah. And he looks at me, and how you just normally would someone would say,
Yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you so much for attending our church, and we'll be praying for you and your safe journeys.
Yeah.
And so he didn't say that. He just looked at me, and he had this look on his face, and he said, he said, I've never had to say this to anyone before in my life.
Yeah.
But he said, I'm just going to obey God because I hear him speaking. And I'm just getting chill bumps again. And he said, you're not supposed to move to Florida. You're supposed to stay right here in Texas. And I was like, okay. He said, and at first at that point, okay, he crazy. But the word out of his mouth right after that is what stopped me in my tracks. He said, you're running from something.
Ooh.
You need to stay here in Texas because what's haunting you here is going to haunt you there. And I just burst into tears. Immediately I had a peace. And I remember going out to my car that was packed, that I was supposed to be driving out. And I didn't even, I was just like, okay. I remember I got an apartment just like that. Everything was reversed. I ended up getting money back from my apartment in Florida. Everything was canceled. Everything was just easy. Mm-hmm. But what gave me chill bumps next was when I walked out to my car from the church after talking to the pastor. I'm like, what could I be running from, God? Like, what? Like, I don't understand. Like, just please tell me. Like, I don't want to spend all my life here in Texas.
Yeah.
I walked back to the car. My phone had died, but I plugged it in. I waited for it to come on because, I had to have conversations with my boss that I'm staying and my new boss, I'm not coming, just things like that.
Yeah.
And it said, there was a text from a friend that said, have you started the book? And the time that he texted was the exact time that church ended when I had went up to the pastor to say goodbye.
Yeah. Wow.
That's why I started writing the book, because I knew that it was a God thing and it wasn't a me thing.
That was honestly so beautiful. Oh my God. That was like 100 times better than the answer that I could have expected. And it's like, wow. Yeah. Why is it important for you as a writer, that people who are reading your book feel that freedom?
It's important because when you can see and feel something and experience it, mm-hmm. Then you know that it's possible.
Yes.
It's real. Yeah. And so that's I wanted people to, see my face on that cover. And I wanted them to see, when you look at my social media page, you get me. You get when I'm happy, mm-hmm. and you get when things aren't going so right. I don't know if you've seen some of my posts, but I do. I'm not feeling the greatest. I post. And I post because people need to see in the times that everything's not all, happy and everything's going great. They need to see when you're not, and how do you act and what happens.
Right. Wow. So last couple of questions, and as this is a spiritual podcast, I think it would be awesome to know if you have any spiritual or self-care routines in your work life as well as while you're working on a project.
Okay, so I have some spiritual routines. I wake up in the morning and I'm not perfect with it, but I read my Bible.
Right.
So I read a chapter a day. Mm-hmm. I try to make sure I stay on that regimen, because when I read a chapter, I'm really taking that chapter in, and I'm not forcing myself to read, all these scriptures, right?
Right.
And I don't have anything else attached to it. I don't have anything explaining it or anything. That's just my time to read and understand God's word and then, pray. And so I'm able to marinate on that chapter. And it's so funny because since I started doing that, I could actually tell you the story of the Bible so far, right? Without trying to like remember a scripture or something.
Yeah.
So that's my spiritual routine. Whenever I go exercising, I love nature. So exercising and bike riding or walking. I love nature. And so I'll talk to God there. I try to like self-care routines. So I have 3 categories. The free self-care routine, the budget self-care routine, and this is on my bucket list once in a lifetime self-care routine.
Yeah.
The free self-care is, doing something at least 25 to 30 minutes a day that gets my heart rate going, because that's self-care. That's doing something to work out my heart and to make sure that I stay healthy. 30 minutes a day, keep the doctor away.
Yeah.
And then, and just, maybe taking bubble baths every now and then, or going, now the budgeted self-care routine is budgeting in, you know what, I'm going to get a massage this month.
Right.
Right. And, it's like $30, but still.
Yeah.
Another budgeted routine is, I'd say, hiking too is a free self-care routine. But another budgeted one is taking myself out to eat. And then like one of those bucket list items, that's okay. Going to, get on a flight to Miami, and then I'm going to get on a yacht.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, you know what I'm saying? Like something that, woo.
That is amazing, because I love that you have like these 3 categories that you go into, right? Like that you dive into while you are working on your self-care. And that's so important, right? Because people either think of self-care as, like this highly expensive stuff that you have to do, and you have to like invest a lot of your time and a lot of your energy and patience and resources just to feel good. And that is why they run away from it. And then, there are people who are like, for me, self-care is just reading a book, but that's it. And not to actually pamper yourself like you would pamper a loved one. So I love that you have like these 3 categories that kind of has the perfect balance, that you can do this when you have a lot of time, and you can do this, where you can do the budgeted thing when you're feeling something special. And then when you want to go all out and be all crazy, you have this bucket list thing. That's so perfect. I love it. Yes. Now, what was one of your soul's conquest, and what is shaping up to be your current soul's conquest?
And when you say soul's conquest, like can you explain to me what you mean?
Yes. So for me, conquest is basically like this quest you have, much like in video games and stuff like that, right? Like, so this is a journey this is a destination. You're here, and this is the journey. And once you have reached the destination, you have conquered something. So for me, a soul's conquest is just walking on the different paths of life, reaching different destinations that I have in mind. And once I've reached that is a conquest that is completed. So what is, if that makes any sense?
Okay. I think a previous conquest I've had is it's like owning my own business. Yeah, owning my own business and really stepping outside of myself to do that, because it's very scary.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and my current soul quest is to be successful in my own business.
Yeah.
So the fear, I guess, for me was to put myself out there and say I was doing it. Now, like, now I'm out here and everyone's kind of like, oh, she's got her own thing. She's doing her own thing.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, you can't fail. Failure is not an option. Like, people are going to be like,
yeah.
For me, it's just, even if I do fail, right, it's okay. It's okay to fail, because that's a
right.
But I did it.
Yeah.
And that's the bucket list. That's the quest.
Yes.
Because I did it, and no matter whether I win or whether I fail, I did it, and I'll be proud of myself. And when I look back on my life, when I get older, I can be proud of myself and say, you know what, I did try that route. Yeah. And, no matter how it turns out, I did it. Yeah. And I can't say I didn't, because I think that the fear too was, I'm always going to work for somebody for the rest of my life. And that's not where my soul wants to be.
Yeah, I love it. So what is the one thing that has, happened in your life recently that has created a really huge impact on your life?
My son.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Having my son was the greatest treasure in the world. I don't even, I have no words, as you can just, he is just, my son, I love him so much, and he amazes me. And from the day he was inside of my stomach and I knew him, till when he was born, and even till now, I'm so very proud of him. And, just the accomplishments he's had. And I just continue to pray, that he continues to live his life. Yeah, he's a precious soul, and that's my baby. That's mommy's baby. Although he's 19 and he's like, really, mom?
Oh my gosh, no, I think every mother feels that, right? So that's something that you should never give up, irrespective of how old your child is. So yeah, that was beautiful. One last thing. What is the one last thing that you would like to leave my listeners with?
Your attitude determines your altitude.
Nice.
That's one thing that really affected my life. Hearing that advice. If I have a bad attitude, the day's not going to be good. Yeah. And I could ruin something. Even if you go into a bad attitude for an interview, you go into whatever you're doing, you could ruin and you could destroy something. And so having a good attitude and remaining positive is going to take you just to higher places and higher ground always. I guarantee you can keep that positive energy flowing, and, a smile that brightens up the room. You will experience adversity, but you'll get through it, and you'll have hope, and you will continue to soar. And there's one thing there's a powerful example that I had saw earlier. If you take a glow stick, you know how you have to break the glow stick in order for it to start glowing? Well, when you're broken and you're facing adversity, you're that glow stick. You're broken. You're broken. But what's happening during that whole time? That's when God's light is shining brightest, because He's able to do a new work, and He's mending and He's healing, and He's saying, "Listen, now look, you're glowing, you're shining bright." And you get through from that adversity, and you went through it, and you're much stronger, you're much wiser, And so I just want to encourage anybody, you're not going to get through life escaping adversity or escaping trauma. We all came into the earth as trauma because childbirth is very traumatic.
Yeah.
but just keep pushing and don't let anybody ever, tell you otherwise, that you're not special, that you're not, beautiful, that you're not unique. You are. You just have to believe it for yourself and love on yourself, because God will always love us.
Wow, that was beautiful. I especially loved the metaphor of the glow stick, right? Wow, amazing. Thank you so much. This was genuinely such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. Um, I know that you are kind of in the process of releasing or writing your next book. So, do we have like any sneak peeks or things that we could kind of be excited for while we wait for it?
Well, part 2, I focus on, going into my adult life and the whirlwind that was.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't, I'm writing it, and actually, you will be I have one other podcast tomorrow, so y'all will both know this week. I'm actually planning to finish that up next week. So I'm taking the whole week off to focus on part 2.
Wow.
And finish it up. I'm halfway through part 2 right now, but I just going to take all of next week to finish it.
Wow. That's amazing. That's super exciting to hear. Thank you so much for joining me today. It meant a lot.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. Hey, Conquerors. Thank you for staying here till the end. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode, today's story, and today's journey. If you did, please feel free to rate and review me on Apple Podcast, or reach out to me at Instagram at Madhurima, that is MADHURIMA _soul coach. Feel free to take a screenshot of the newest episode release, tag me, and put it up on your story with your review so that I can feature you on my Instagram. It would be my honor to do that. It would be my honor to share your perspective on what you thought of this beautiful podcast. Remember, we are here to inspire, we are here to create, we are here to conquer. See you. Bye.